Okay, you'll hear me when I say join me in a warm welcome to Zibby Rockstar Owens. Good evening and welcome to Writers Unplugged. This is a series and a chance to hear your favorite writers or new to you writers in conversation as if you were eavesdropping on us in a coffee shop. My name is Jen Jumba. I'm a librarian at the main branch of Cleveland Public Library. One of my favorite things besides reading is talking to writers. It's an opportunity to get to know their craft, what inspires their stories, where they like to write, essentially getting to know them better and seeing them as human beings and not just the name on the spine of a book. And this evening, we are so lucky to have Zibby Owens joining us to talk about being the editor of a collection of powerful essays on being Jewish now, in response to the tragic events of October 7th. But before we get started, a few housekeeping notes to find out who else is visiting Writers Unplugged this year. Visit cpl.org/upcoming. And Maxbacks Books on Coventry is our independent bookstore. They have copies of Zibby's books, or you can order them from Zibby's bookstore. And if you have questions, put them in the chat. I'll be sure to ask her. So an introduction to Zibby. Zibby Owens is the author of Blank, a novel, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, a children's book, Princess Charming, and the editor of 3 anthologies on being Jewish now, Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids, and Moms Don't Have Time to, a quarantine anthology. Her next novel, Overheard, is forthcoming. She's a frequent contributor to Good Morning America, the Katie Couric Media. She has contributed to Vogue, Oprah Daily, and other outlets, appeared on CNN, CBS This Morning, and many others. Vulture called her NYC's most powerful book fluencer. Zibby is the CEO and founder of Zibby Media, which I think is awesome. It's dubbed the Zibbyverse by LA Times, and it includes the award-winning daily podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, the boutique publishing house, Zibby Books, Zibby's Bookshop, which is an independent bookstore in Santa Monica, California, Zibby's Book Club, and Zibby Retreats, events for book lovers. She is a graduate of Yale University, Harvard Business School, and Zibby currently lives in New York with her 4 children, ages 9 to 17. Her husband, Kyle Evans, co-president and founder of Morning Moon Productions. So it's no surprise that I, as a librarian, read a ton of books. I talk to a ton of readers, talk to a bunch of writers, and I've learned that we all read for different reasons, whether it's to learn something, to escape, or to be entertained. And every once in a while, there's a book that comes along that you feel was written just for you. And for me, that was Zibby's book, Bookends, because when I was reading it, I felt seen. I felt that there was someone else out there who had experienced very similar things, had similar thoughts, and I realized I wasn't alone. And then this spring at a conference, I had the honor to meet Zibby, a true rock star to both readers and librarians. And we shared a very heartfelt conversation, which I will always treasure. So as we were talking this evening, you too will see Zibby as smart, funny, kind, generous, and a compassionate soul. So join me in a warm welcome to Zibby Owens.
Hi, Jen.
So lovely to have you here this evening.
Thank you for having me. Sorry for joining early.
Well, no, I'm so glad. So glad that the conversation that we have, I will always treasure and has made a world of difference. I think, which is kind of the goal of a lot of writers, right, is to touch people, to make people think, for people to feel seen, feel heard. But this evening, we're going to talk about this incredibly powerful book of essays called On Being Jewish Now. Can you talk a little bit about this book?
Sure. So this book came about this past summer and was produced in record time. I have been speaking out publicly since the events of October 7th and the aftermath of the rise of anti-Semitism globally since October 8th. And yet I was feeling like, was it even making a difference? Was speaking out doing anything? And I was feeling very frustrated as things continued to get worse, it felt. And I was part of a group chat of 30 women authors who all had started up a group together called Artists Against Anti-Semitism, a 501c3 nonprofit. And I had the benefit of listening to all of their stories all year long, things that weren't necessarily reported in the media or anywhere else, but that united us in some way. It certainly made me feel less alone with what I was feeling and thinking in this year plus. And I finally thought, I need more voices so that we can all elevate what we're saying. And I really need to have allies understand, or potential allies understand, what it is we've been going through and what our lived experience is like, and also what it even means to be Jewish, how it feels to be Jewish. And hopefully people who are consumers of other books about various groups and want to just understand and be empathetic will appreciate it and relate and maybe feel moved to help out, or at least not stay as silent. So all of these things came together, and I asked 200 authors if they would participate. 75 said yes. And the catch was they had to do it in 3 weeks. And they did. They had to write the essay, deal with my edits, amend it themselves, record their own audiobook section, and they did it all. They're amazing. And the ones who have said yes continue to say yes to basically everything I ask and need. And we all view this as our collective book. So it's been this wonderful experience. And the essays and the contributors are wide ranging. The contributors range in race and age and geography and anything else you can think of, even their own relationships to Judaism, from basically non-existent till recently to Orthodox to rabbis. So it runs the gamut, and so do the Jewish people. So the book is a time capsule of how we think and feel now, and all the profits are being donated to Artists Against Anti-Semitism.
Wow. When I thought you couldn't get any cooler. So I'm joined in conversation by award-winning writer, podcaster, rockstar Zibby Owens, and we're talking about On Being Jewish Now. So you start off the book, right? You have an essay, right? And you talk about why you chose to speak out. And you say that you feel things incredibly deeply, whether it's pain, hurt, unfairness, joy, all of it, like the whole human experience. And I think that's what comes through when you're writing. The bookends certainly came through, to be able to put words to things that are sometimes hard for us to put words to. But when you're looking at On Being Jewish Now, there's 11 sections of this book. Did you deliberately set out with those 11 sections, or was it as people's work came in, they just naturally kind of fell into groupings?
This is the first time I even knew there were 11 sections.
Well, there you go.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
I did not do that on purpose, but I did want to categorize them in some way. And so once I had them all, I started finding common threads and finding ways to organize them. And those are the categories I picked after I had them all.
They're absolutely fabulous. We talk, a lot about the human experience, and this collection of essays perfectly captures it. I mean, even from the first line of one of the essays, who would hide us? This book was hard to read, because similarly to you, I feel things. When people write things on a page, whether it's true, whether it's a novel, I become incredibly invested in those characters and those people. And I guess, Brene Brown says it's hard to hate up close. So by being able to take a book and fill it with such wonderful written essays, you put a human face on it, on this incredibly tragic thing that's happening in the world, where people are hating people just because, not because of any one thing, but because of a religion. And to me, it's uncalled for.
Well, now that you said that, I'm like, maybe I should have put pictures in, and then I would have actually had a human face. But anyway, I didn't. But they're on our website if you want to see everybody.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's beautifully done. I mean, I can remember, way back when, going to Amsterdam and going to Anne Frank's house, and just, out on the street, there's the hustle, the bustle. But once you walk up those stairs, there's a silence. There's a solemnness that, there's no selfies, there's no chattering, people aren't texting. There's just a reverence, and to think through, boy, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And was just struck by that opening line. One of your people who wrote, her daughter asked, who would hide us? And I just thought, wow,
Yes. I mean, it is a question people are asking their friends and thinking. And I also was at the Anne Frank apartment recently. I was there last year, and then also when I was in high school. And now they've had to board up the statue of Anne Frank outside because it was graffitied over and couldn't even be outside, which is, I think, just the symbol of these times, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a reminder, and it's literally being closed. The reminders are being put away in a box. So it's chilling.
It's chilling. There's so many, just kind of like life. There's good and bad, like two opposite things can be true at the same time, which I think almost everybody has a hard time kind of wrapping their head around. And there's a photography exhibit that's highlighted in this book about there's 40 photos. It's 11 different couples that were married during the Holocaust. Like, just because that is happening didn't stop people from finding the good and the love. And the person who wrote the essay goes on to describe their facial expressions and just how that, picture's worth 1,000 words, but how that is conveyed, that tenderness in the face of such atrocity.
Yes, that essay by Alix Strauss. She's a New York Times journalist, and I was struck by that essay and by the fact that despite it all, right, that's the whole thing. There is still love. There's still your everyday. There's still human emotions and all of the things that make us who we are and the things that make our lives worth living. Those things don't end. And yeah, it was beautiful to read that. I also think it's important not to only talk about the Holocaust. I mean, there's a lot of historical fiction written about the Holocaust, and you would think that was it. I mean, I literally was talking to the lower school headmaster of my kid's school because I'm pitching the idea of doing an assembly. And I'm like, all the Jewish focused assemblies are about pain of some kind, right? Like, or surviving in the Passover story and the Holocaust story. Like, why don't we just all get up and do the Hora, and we'll show you how we celebrate? Because all these other cultures come in and get to do fun dances. Like, we have fun dances too. Like, it's not all trauma. Like, let us celebrate and show you who we are when we're not being persecuted. Because I think that's important too. And I think that's what the essays do. It's not all doom and gloom. Some are super funny and poignant, and anybody could be writing these essays in some cases.
Absolutely. I was laughing out loud at some of them. And Mark Fierce.
Yes.
Where he talks about, we all know him from Royal Pains and some other shows, right? And he's just a regular guy. And during his bar mitzvah, he was a breakdancer. Like, that was an important thing for him to celebrate. So now it's time for his son to do the same. And he gets called on to like a breakdance challenge. And you just I'm laughing out loud. Just again, experiencing the sheer joy of what that event signifies and represents, and knowing that that can coexist alongside, fun. I mean, so there are, absolutely fun dances, and there are absolutely fun things to celebrate and traditions, and, to hear that conveyed, throughout the book is a wonderful thing.
And by the way, thank you so much for your close read of this book and reading so carefully. It's really wonderful to hear you talk about so many of the essays. So thank you for being completely prepared. It's, as a podcaster, I know how that goes. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. And I'm actually honored that you took the time, to do this. But those essays were truly wonderful, and have me thinking about things differently and thinking like, well, what can I do? How do I help and support? And I was struck by how many people as writers lost book deals or had, there were social media campaigns to give 1-star reviews to a book that hadn't even been published yet. And I think, first of all, that's mean, even if take that out of the equation to give somebody a 1-star review. But to do it before a book is launched, I don't understand that. To have appointments canceled, podcasts canceled, I'm like, oh my gosh, tell everybody. I will have anybody and talk to anybody, because that's how we get better as humans. There was a essay in the book where somebody was out to lunch and somebody said something really inappropriate, and she called the person on it. And instead of that person sitting down and continuing to have this tough conversation from different perspectives, just got up and left.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've come to in today's day and age, that we can't have conversations about tough things.
Yes, I know. It's tragic. That was Jill Zarin, who's a reality TV show star of The Real Housewives of New York City. But I know her through my husband, and we're friends. And yeah, she's like, why not sit down? Aren't we supposed to talk things through? And I think that that's what this whole situation has really shown all of us, all these rational assumptions. We talk and work things out when we have trouble. We hear each other's side of the story. People are fundamentally good. There are two sides to every story. Like, all of these things are not necessarily things held by everybody else. And not everybody believes and has the same moral compass necessarily, or believes in the same things. I mean, none of us want war. None of us want destruction. Nobody wants anybody hurt. That is the last thing we want. Like, I just want to be like left alone, and no other country sort of has to defend itself for its right to exist. That's it. Just like let Israel exist. Leave us alone.
Yeah, exactly. And you are, I mean, I'm painting with a broad brush because I'm talking about the voices that I hear, in this. I'm joined by rockstar Zibby Owens on Being Jewish Now, edited this powerful collection of essays talking about what it's like to be Jewish and how fun it is, and that it's 0.2% of the world's population. I don't think I realized that until I was reading the book. And then how bonded and connected you are, and you don't even know each other.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about, I think it was Dara Levin, who had a cousin's son pass away.
Yes.
And somebody that was a complete stranger went to the Shiva and paid respects because she couldn't travel there. Complete stranger, but this sense of connection and this sense of bond to people that you've not even met. And here we have at the same time people that we have met, people that are friends with, that abandon us.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept playing those two things in my head, and I'm thinking, my goodness, like, I want to get like moral compasses for everybody, and it has to be like implanted before you leave the hospital so that the world becomes a better place. But I know that's not realistic.
I have to Google this when we get off and search to see if somebody has made a moral compass as it would be a good gift.
Like a great gift,
moral compass. Yeah. Put it on the compass.
Yeah. I mean, I just think what you've done with this collection of essays truly illustrates just how wonderful people in general are, and how we shouldn't hate what we don't know. Right.
Yep.
And how you talked, there's one line in there where you talk about something that you genuinely believe to be true, and having knowledge of it to be true gives you strength.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in this world, we're so busy, right? We're so caught up. There's so many things that are competing for our attention. So we kind of take sound bites or snippets or headlines or titles of something, and all of a sudden that informs our decision instead of actually taking the time to do the work to learn what's behind it.
Right. And in this case, unfortunately, there has been a 20+ year coordinated, systematic infiltration by Hamas into all of our institutions, our NGOs, our college campuses, our media. And it hasn't been that some people woke up one day and felt this way. This has been groomed in us right under our noses, and will take a long time to eradicate. And I only wish it had raised more alarm bells. I mean, I heard about all this stuff on college campuses, and I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, crazy. And then I just moved on, because you just couldn't believe things could take such a big turn. But turns out it wasn't a turn. It's been this way all along, and maybe we just didn't know. So anyway, it can feel very heavy, but to your point on connection, I do feel that this whole period of time has connected people who are Jewish in every way, even though we are so different. And that has been sort of a silver lining in this time. So there's no one else I'd rather be in the trenches with, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the beautiful thing that comes from, I mean, it shouldn't have to take an atrocity or a tragedy to happen, right?
Yes.
But what comes, like typically when there's, a natural disaster, right? That's tends to be when we see the best of people, but it shouldn't have to take something like that to see that. And I think your book, so I'm talking with Zibby Owens, collection of essays on being Jewish now, does that. I think that these voices will continue to echo. I think it should be assigned reading. I think everybody should read this book. I've bought several copies as gifts. So, because I think you need to hear the good and not just, to your point, the bad, the tragedy, the trauma. That doesn't negate it, but it coexists. And sad that that's what we have to do. So, can we talk a little bit about Blank?
Of course, you can talk about anything you want.
It's
your show, Jen.
Well, I want to make sure. I mean, this is an important topic, and I don't want to be.
We covered it. Yes, On Being Jewish now, available now in ebook, audiobook, paperback. We also have a Substack if you want to write your own essays on beingJewishnow.substack.com. So anybody is welcome to submit. And if it meets our editorial standards, we will publish your essay. We've had essays from people all over the globe and ages 18 to 90. So we have an Instagram account. We have a podcast. So we're making this into a movement. We have more events coming up, and we'll be doing events all over the country and in Canada.
That's awesome. It just proves like you are the rock star, the thread that kind of connects people, readers, writers, and everyone else.
Thank you.
So Substack is awesome. Every time I read it, there's normally a moment or a line where it hits me right here, and I think, oh, dang, how does she do that? And I was like, oh, it's the human experience. Like, if we're genuine and authentic, just makes the connections that much more memorable, for sure. So, Blank.
Yes.
A novel. One of my favorite books. I mean, I can't tell you how often I was chuckling out loud as I read this book. Do you want to tell everybody what this book is about?
Do I remember what Blank is about? No, I'm kidding. Blank is a novel about a woman named Pippa Jones. She is a mom in an unhappy marriage and is a best-selling author who can't think of what to write for her next book. She had a book idea, but then it turned out the biggest star in the country had the same idea, so she had to throw her book into the garbage, which is like every author's nightmare. And now she's gotten to the point where her agent says her publisher is going to ask for the money back, the advance that she was paid, unless she comes up with something. And at the advice of her young son, she decides to hand the book in blank as a commentary on the publishing industry and how it almost doesn't even matter what's inside of a book. It's all about the packaging and the marketing that matters. And that decision turns her life upside down in every conceivable way. It is about female friendship and marriage and motherhood and the impossibility of keeping all the balls in the air and what happens when something changes everything you thought would happen in your life.
Yeah, I think I'm struck by how many times writers, you all will sit down and it starts with like 2 words, what if? What if? And then that kind of starts the ball rolling in terms of where ideas come from. And when she takes her son's advice, I think that's pretty fantastic, right?
Well, that is actually what happened. I took my son's advice, and that is how we got this book at all. And so I have my character, can, in some ways, he's close to home.
Yeah. Well, fun, some laugh out loud moments, certainly in the book, the bonds of friendship and female friendship and sisterhood, you capture so eloquently. In this book. So,
I have to write, and even now, because I'm very close to my final edits. Well, maybe not final. I'm still editing my next novel, which is supposed to come out next October, but we'll see. And I just have to have a little fun with it. Otherwise, why am I doing this? Sometimes I don't know why I'm doing it anyway, except that like I feel like I'm called to do it and I love it, but it's so hard. So um I have to laugh out loud myself writing it or it's not working. And
Well,
I ended up tossing an entire half-written book for this new book because it just like wasn't fun enough. And it doesn't mean all books have to be fun, but when I'm writing it, like I at least have to have some fun and a note of seriousness too, but it has to be entertaining and it has to be fast-paced because I don't know, who has time?
well, and I just think like, how do you manage to fit all of that in, right? Like you have a bookstore, you have a publishing company, you have a podcast, you write books, you write your Substack. Like, how do you do you sleep, or is it like merely like a couple hours at a time? Like and you have a husband and kids.
Yeah. Um, well, I have a team, first of all. So
Mhm.
I have a team who helps with the publishing side. The publishing house takes up the most time and the most resources. So I help with acquisitions, I help with marketing strategy, and I also proof everything that goes out. Like I'm very specific about every visual and making sure
Right.
it's on brand and all of that. And working with the authors, which is such a joy. But
Mhm.
I mean, in some cases I do sort of go over the books and edit and whatever. But anyway, that I have a whole team working on that. The podcast does take a lot of time because that is
Mhm.
me picking which books, getting all the books here and trying to
Well,
pick.
I'm just looking at your bookshelves behind you.
Oh yeah. So those
And
are like old books. And then over here, my bookshelves behind me are color coded.
yes.
But the books here, over there, I have the books that are coming up on the podcast. Here are the maybes. They look good, but I haven't had time to read any of them at all. So I can't decide if I want them on yet. And I have a library card outside my door, which are these books also look good. I'm not going to put them on the podcast, but I want to uplift them in some way, but I'm not sure what. Maybe I'll put it in a roundup or a list or whatever.
Yeah.
So that takes forever. Basically, I do a little bit of everything and I love it that way. I do sleep. Not always all the time. Some days I'm up at 4 and I just like can't sleep and I have to do stuff. But
Yeah. Well, I won't say like we were trading emails back and forth at 1 a.m. So yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
sometimes it depends. Sometimes I can catch up. And basically every day it's just doing my best. And honestly, social media takes up probably too much of my time
Mhm.
because I do all my own posting and growing my account and um, just engaging with people, but I love it. I mean, I've made like such wonderful relationships with people and so I spend too much time. Well, I maybe not too much. I spend a lot of time on that. I haven't been doing enough of my own writing. So I do most of my own like fiction writing and working
Yeah.
on books on airplanes. And because my bookstore is in LA and I live in New York, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Like tomorrow I have a flight. Although
So
it's
you know
late
that
now
you'll
that I'm
have like
realizing
5
it.
hours. Yeah.
Now I'm realizing my flight tomorrow is like at 9, so I'm not going to be able to stay awake to do my normal 6 hours on a plane, which now is throwing a wrench into my plan.
How
um,
can I help? Let me tell you. How can I help?
but I don't know. We all just like try to fit it in every day. I just try to pack it in. I feel like every day I wake up and I'm like fighting against the sands of time, right? I'm just like, go,
Right.
go, 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 as if, and that's why I like working on planes because there's a set time and I'm like, how much can I get done before this plane lands? Like
It's
sometimes
almost
I
like
even
a
am
game show.
hoping.
Like there's a new game show. Like we're gonna put like 7 writers pick to fly on a plane cross country.
Yes.
Here's the prompt, and
Yes.
then see what happens at the end, because to
Flight Path.
manage all
We
of
call it
that, and then
Flight Path, a collection of stories.
yeah, I think it'd be kind of fun.
Mhm.
Hmm. And a couple of my friends are writers. So I started Writers Unplugged to support Cleveland Reads, which was the mayor's initiative last year to, increase literacy levels. And I had no idea that I would meet like the coolest people as a result of doing it, and people that I would consider friends and enjoy talking to, you know. Yeah, so it is a gift, and you're trying to figure out, how do I read everything carefully so that I have the opportunity to showcase, and it's not just where did you get the idea? And,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah. So
so
what types of books are you drawn to or reading lately or
It's a combination of like nonfiction. There's a new book coming out called Defy, and I'm going to forget the physician's name who wrote it, but typically we think of the word defy as like, I don't want to say negative, but challenging. You
Mhm.
think of the word defiant, you think of, a
Mhm.
particular person, somebody on your team,
Mhm.
sibling, whatever. But it's more about saying yes to the things that align with your values. So to me, I found that fascinating
Mm.
that you're just living like a congruent life,
Yeah.
genuine, and saying like it's okay to say no. Like so often we think we have to say yes to everything,
Mhm.
but saying no. So that to me is interesting. And then I read a ton of mystery,
Huh.
partly because I think that there's so much going on in life. I like sometimes things to have a nice, neat ending, like
I
who did it?
I don't read that many mysteries,
Yeah.
but I just read a thriller which sort of crosses over to mystery
Mhm.
called Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney.
Is it
It's
good? Everything she
so
writes is good.
good. I'm, like, obsessed with her now. I have never underlined so many, like, one-liners and that I started numbering them, and I was up to number 12 by, like, page 10, and I was
Yeah.
like, "I have to stop. This is just
Look,
cringe."
can
So
you
oh, yeah.
see? We do the
Thank
same
you.
thing,
Yes.
right? And like Bookends has the
Oh,
same,
so
there's just certain things. Yeah. But she's wonderful, and her books always take a turn that you never see coming. And I read it a lot of those, and to still not see it coming, I'm like, darn it, she did
yeah,
it again.
yeah.
So
I just interviewed her, and she said that she said to her agent, "Wait, if you wanna call me, like, the queen of twists, like, what if I can't think of a good twist? What if there is no twist in a book I write?" And he's like, "Well, then that will be the twist."
it's like the blank of
Yeah, exactly.
of thrillers. Yeah. So I know your time is precious.
Yeah.
And I know you have kids, and now I know that you have an early morning flight. So
No, it's
um
a late flight, that's why I'm gonna fall asleep, but anyway.
oh, 9, not 9 a.m.,
No,
9
9 PM. 9
p.m.
AM is my perfect flight time. Would sweet
Yes.
spot of writing.
Yeah. Wow. Did you do you have guests that you like fangirl over when they're on your podcast? I try to keep mine contained, but I'm still like, oh my gosh, Zibby Owens.
Oh my gosh. I mean, literally, like, 7 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom and had not started any of this, so when people are, like, saying my name as if it's, like, a thing, it still, like, makes me chuckle because, come on. A
No.
fangirl, yes, I do fangirl sometimes. I mean, when I have these literary legends who I've been reading forever, it's
Mhm.
just incredible. I can't even believe it. There was somebody I had to apologize that I was fangirling so much. Now I can't remember which author it was, but I know that, when I had John Irving on, I just, like,
Like
couldn't
literally, I
believe
just
it.
sucked all the air out of the room.
I know, and it was like, "John Irving is in your waiting room on Zoom," and I was like, "Stop." He's like, he's just like a person on Zoom. Like, to
Uh-huh.
my mind, he's not a person. He's like I don't even
Yeah.
know, a hallowed institution or something. So,
Do you have a favorite John Irving book? Mine's
I
A
think
Prayer for
A Prayer
Owen
for Owen
Meany.
Meany, yeah,
Yeah, me
pretty
too.
much, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
he
did
can
really like A Widow for 1 Year. Did you read that one?
I have not read that one.
Yeah, that
No.
was also good. Um, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean,
Cider
the
House Rules, and I don't know. Uh,
I
he's
haven't read the latest one, the
been
last chairlift,
I did
Stephen.
not end up reading The Last Chairlift because it was, like, 800 pages, and
Yeah.
it would be a failing proposition. I would never get through. So I
Yeah.
didn't
So you
start.
didn't.
Plus, I'm, like, anti-skiing these days. So anyway, I didn't read it, but I do love him, and
Yeah.
yes, 100%, I get very excited to talk to authors, especially when I've just finished a book that I, like, could not put down and just wanna be like, "How did you do that? How? Like, what did you do? How do you
Yeah.
know how to do that?"
No, I marvel at you all as writers. I was out with a couple writer friends and was telling them a story they had asked about something that was going on, and I'm updating them, and they're like, "That's pretty darn funny, Jen." I was like, "Mm." They're like, "That's a short story. You need to write that." And I was like, "No, no. My role in life is to be a reader, not to be a writer."
Okay.
And they're like, "No, seriously, like we even have your title. It's T minus 20 seconds." And I was like, "Oh, come on." So I sat, one afternoon I was at home, and I was like, let's just try. And then I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what the rules are, but it was kind of fun. And then I was like, whew, that was like 1,500 words. And I was like, how you all do it? And you put together thousands of words, write books, create characters that, I enjoy, or I purposely don't like because of the way they were created, or ones that I don't like, but I understand why they did what they did. That's a gift that you all have.
Well, I think you have to remember you don't do it in one afternoon, just sitting there trying to write a whole T-20 novel. I mean, like
Right.
authors do what you do. They do that for 1,500 words, and then the next day they just do it again. Or they do it a couple days, and then they take a few weeks, and then they delete all of that because it was terrible, and then they start again. But it's the coming back to it that differentiates it, right? You just have to keep coming back to it.
Yeah. Well, it brings you joy though when you write. Clearly you love writing fiction. Your whole face lit up when you were talking about blank.
I do. It's just so hard for me to get in it. Like it's just so hard. It's like I feel like I have to run through this whole fun house before I can like get to the end of it. Like I've created all these obstacles in my way.
Yeah.
But
and then I imagine it's kind of hard to just do it in between everything else that you have going on, that sometimes you almost need, I don't know, that nonstop flight from New York to.
Yeah. Because I also can't even remember what I'm writing or who the people are or like what the thing was. But the most fun part is being like, oh my gosh, wait, I know what I could do now. Now I see what could happen. Wait a minute. Let me do this. And then that's very exciting. That's the fun part.
Very fun part. So as we wrap up, this is so hard. I could talk to you forever, but I know you've got stuff to do. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want people to know?
Well, follow me on Instagram. I'm at Zibby Owens. Follow some of the books. We publish a lot of books too, and those are great. We have a new one out called Pictures of You by Emma Gray, which is amazing.
Last Love Letter.
Who wrote The Last Love Note, which was amazing.
Yep.
We have Bluebird Day coming. We have this really funny collection of essays coming in January called Happy to Help, Adventures of a People Pleaser, which is so good. Anyway, so check out the books we publish, Zibby Books. And if you're in the LA area ever, stop by the bookstore on 11th in Montana called Zibby's Bookshop. And join our community. Come to our events. Come say hi.
Absolutely. Best person to say hi to. But then again, I'm a little bit biased. So final 5 questions, right? So I think you're a rock star, right? So what would be your walk-up music? When you walk up to your bookstore, what would be your walk-up music?
I really like the song by Jess Glynn. It starts like, it's like getting out of the corner, like standing in a crowded line and I can't see your face. You know what I'm talking about? Cold and empty place.
I think you should have walk-up music for every one of your events.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so I think that.
Next question, I think I know the answer to because of something you said earlier. Sunshine or snow?
Sunshine.
Okay. What book can you read over and over and over and over again?
None.
None?
I'm not a big rereader. I just can't. No. I guess a kid's book.
Yeah.
I guess I'll say Mo Willems' We Are in a Book. I've read that 8,000 times and could read that a million more.
An elephant, yeah. Without a doubt. Yep. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I want to say something about pausing time or just making time stretch a little more, slowing things down. But then I think, I don't know, careful what you wish for.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, if you could just like make time a little more elastic.
Mm-hmm. Or if I could just speed it down or slow it up in certain settings, right? Like,
Oh.
oh, this day is really fun. Like, let's make this last longer.
This is kind of not for me, the fast forward
Yeah,
button.
but like this is like really not fun. Please speed it up. I'd like things to be able to fast forward and slow motion and control the speed at which my life goes.
And then the last question, what is one of your favorite Jewish traditions?
Dancing the hora. I love that. So fun.
Such happiness. So a huge thank you to all of you who are watching and listening. Thank you to Mike, our tech team, making sure everything went smoothly. Make sure you get copies of Zibby's books. She has her own bookstore, so feel free to order there. Great gifts for the holiday season. So lucky that you joined us to talk about On Being Jewish Now, a powerful collection of essays. We didn't really talk about bookends, but incredible memoir. And then a ridiculously fun book, Blank. So I'm Jen Jumba with Writers Unplugged. Thank you so much and happy reading.